My name is Sami, and I'm a social and political activist for a long time in this city of Jaffa. And I'm a member. I was a member in a political party inside Israel. It's called the Balad Party.
Balad?
Balad, B-A-L-A-D.
Balad.
We established Balad in the mid-1990s, and now I am the head of the party. I started at the student movement at the end of the 1990s as an activist, and now I am the head of this political party. Okay. How much time do we have?
How much time do you need?
Let's say now it's 11:15 nearly. We can finish at 1. Is it okay? Works with your program?
Yep. Brilliant.
Fantastic.
We'll do the talk in 2 parts. First thing, I would like to give you some information and background so we can have a common language, and then we'll open the whole thing for discussion. Okay?
Yep.
Academically, I studied history and political science at Tel Aviv University. I did some other studies, but mainly I concentrated most of my time on learning about the history of the city of Jaffa. And I think it's very important because, in my point of view, the story of the city of Jaffa and our new neighbor Tel Aviv is a microcosm of the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In the 19th century until 1948, Jaffa was the most important Arab Palestinian city in modern Palestine. By most important, I mean it was the biggest demographically, it was the most important economic center, and it was the most active cultural center. On its margins, as a result of a settler colonial project, new small neighborhoods were built at the end of the 19th century.
End of 19th century.
19th century. In 1886, they built a small neighborhood named Neve Tzedek. In 1890, they built another neighborhood named Neve Shalom. Till the support of the British, Zionism was a total failure. Most of the settler colonialists were leaving back again to different parts of the world. They didn't like the climate in this part of the world. They didn't like the food, the language. Everything for them was very strange. And they were not able to succeed in any serious settlement. In my area, in Jaffa and Tel Aviv area, let me give you some numbers so you would see how important and active was the British role. They started their project in 1882 by immigrating from East and Central Europe to Palestine, mainly Poland, Russia, and then other areas. Between 1882 till 1919, in the area of Jaffa, now northeast to Jaffa, what later on became Tel Aviv, they were able to bring only 2,000 people. Of course, they brought much more, but all of them were leaving. When Britain gets into the picture in 1917 with the Balfour Declaration and the occupation of Palestine, because without Britain, Zionism could not work. It was totally marginal and not important. Look what happens when the most important imperialist power in the world at that time gets into the picture. Nearly 4 decades, 1882 till 1919, northeast Jaffa, 2,000 settlers. In 1 decade, with the British support, between 1919 and 1929, their number grew from 2,000 to 40,000. They doubled in a decade 20 times. When the Nazis became an important player in the German politics before the Holocaust and the Second World War, between 1929 and 1939, Tel Aviv was already an independent city, and its number grew from 40,000 to 160,000 people. In 1948, Tel Aviv had a population of 200,000 Jews from different parts of the world. Third of the whole Jewish population all over historical Palestine were developing in Tel Aviv. And these were the most important active politically, economically, and culturally. Tel Aviv was the beating heart of Zionism. Now, this project had no chance to succeed without Britain, because Palestine is a very small piece of earth, and people saw that there are settler colonialists coming, and most of them passed very close to it in Jeffa seaport. Okay, all of those who came to Palestine between 1882 till 1936 passed through Jeffa's port, and people were counting, and you would see in the Palestinian press, another 500 came, another 1,000 came, another 200 came. This means that this is the end of Palestine. People were aware of them, and of course they were revolting against that. And there was in 1920 a revolution against Zionism, and in 1921 another time violence against Zionism, and in 1929 again very big political movement and violence. And between 1936 to 1939, for 3 years Palestine was under revolution. People were seeing what was happening to them, and they tried to fight. But this settler colonial project was backed up, like that what's happening with the Americans at that time, was the most powerful imperialist power in the world. Now, we have a lot of challenges and problems with this settler colonial project. The main challenge is its racism. The Jews that were emigrating from Europe to Palestine did not want just to run from anti-Semitism in Europe to a safe place, or to come to share with us our homeland, or they did not want to have a binational state, or to have a normal democracy for all. Their main project was to build a Jewish state in an area that have vast majority of non-Jews. Now, how could you do that? It's not that, and they are coming here to continue building culture with the locals, or to continue, having a multicultural society. They wanted to have a state and society built on race. Now, to become part of their identity, Jewish identity is a very exclusive identity. In order to become a Jew, you need to change your religion. And in the same time, they don't want you to change your religion, because according to their perception, you should be born a Jew. According to the Israeli definition in the law, a Jew is someone who is born for a Jewish mother. This is how you become a Jew. So it goes in your genes. So you can't become part of this thing. Now, in Palestine, when they started their project, the Jews represented less than 5% of the population at the end of the 19th century. with the support of the British, with all the killings and the violence and everything they did for the Palestinians under the British control, with all the immigration, the Jews became third of the population. How can you have a Jewish state if you are not a majority? There are two options to do that. Now forget all the moral discussion, okay? This is a racist, immoral project from the beginning. The options are you do it the Canadian way or the American way. You kill as much as you can from the indigenous people in order to become a majority. You kill. Like what happened in Australia, what happened in New Zealand, what happened in Canada. Okay. Or you simply do ethnic cleansing, like what Professor Ilan Pape describes in his important book. Zionism, from the beginning, knew that it is very hard by immigration to become a majority. And they had different plans how to become a majority using violence. In 1948, because of the British support, they were ready for war. The Palestinians were prevented from having any armed forces. We were not ready for war. I want to explain to you what happens in 1948 in the context of Jaffa as a study piece. Okay? The war is different in different parts of Palestine. But in order to give you a feeling of what happens and the meaning of this Zionist ideology, I want to concentrate my talk to you on what happens in Jaffa. Okay? Because later on Jaffa develops as something very different. In 1947, a group of people came from the UN. Nobody knew at that time what is exactly the UN. And after doing some interviews and some work, they decide to partition Palestine. We have a lot of criticism towards the partition plan, but forget all this criticism. According to their plan, Jaffa should have been part of the Arab state. Okay, the partition says Palestine should have three parts: a Jewish state, an Arab state, and international area that includes Jerusalem and Bethlehem. Jaffa was supposed to be part of the Arab state, but Tel Aviv, its very close neighbor, okay, that was built on the lands of Jaffa, northeast to Jaffa. Tel Aviv was part of the Jewish state. And they are so close to each other, and part of the neighborhoods are mixed. Part of it is Jaffa, part of it is Tel Aviv. How can you have two separate states without any normal border? The Zionist leaders at that time saw Jaffa as a strategic threat for the future of the Zionist project. Because it is so close to Tel Aviv, Tel Aviv is the heart of the Zionist project. This endangers Tel Aviv, so it endangers the whole Zionist project. So they wanted to occupy Jaffa. But as I told you, Jaffa was the biggest Arab Palestinian city. They want to occupy Jaffa, but they don't want the Arab population. Demography is a very important element in all the Zionist thinking all the time. So they decide to occupy Jaffa, but to expel its population. So there were bombings from north, east, and south. Jaffa, before the war of 1948, had nearly a population of 120,000 people. after the war, I would say before the partition, October 1947, Jaffa had 120,000 people. May 1948, it had 3,900. 98% nearly of the population were expelled. Because it is a coastal city, most of the people left through the sea. Those who went south are now facing the third or fourth Nakba in Gaza. Those who went north are facing the third or fourth Nakba in Lebanon. Now, the vast majority became refugees in the whole area, in Jordan, in Gaza, in Egypt, in Lebanon, in Syria. 750,000 Palestinians were expelled during the 1948 war. This was the majority of the Palestinian people at that time. Now, I want to concentrate my talk to you on what happens to those who stayed in Jaffa. Okay? First of all, you should know that...
You mean this 30,900?
Yes. These people, I did a lot of interviews with the elderly population. Most of them stayed by chance. It was not a choice. They were also terrified. They also wanted to run away. But different accidents prevented them from that. Some people were injured, some were stuck in hospitals, some got lost during the mess. Okay, some came to the seaport, and so there were not enough ships to take everyone. So people were violent towards each other. So part of the people were afraid to go, because a ship that should take 10 people would take 30. It would become very dangerous. So a lot of them stayed here by different... My family, for example, the father of my grandfather was a soldier in the Ottoman army during the First World War. He saw what did it mean to become a refugee outside your homeland. So he enforced on his children to stay because he didn't want to be a refugee anywhere. So we stayed here. Now, we call what happened in 1948 a Nakba. A Nakba in the Arabic language means a catastrophe. We usually use this word Nakba to describe big catastrophes. When there's an earthquake, when there's a tsunami, we call there has been a Nakba in this area. Okay, this is Mantika Mankuba, an area that passed a Nakba. Nakba is a very big catastrophe. By the way, the man who called it a Nakba was not a Palestinian. He was a very important pan-Arab thinker, a political scientist in the American University of Beirut. His name was Professor Constantin Zurek. He wrote a very important book in 1949. He tried to understand what happened in Palestine. How did that happen, that settler colonialists came from different parts of the world and were able to establish themselves and expel the locals? So he came up with a very important book. He called it Ma'na Nakba, the meaning of the catastrophe. And after Zurek, everybody started calling it a Nakba. So now, when we say a Nakba, it's 1948 war. I claim that those who stayed passed 3 Nakbas, not just one. The first is the direct results of the war. We became a minority in our homeland. Now, this is something really very hard to explain. But in a sudden, this area, this part of the world was ours. It was our homeland. And and it's in a sudden it's not anymore our homeland. Not just it's not anymore our homeland. The new colonialists have few claims. First, we are not a people at all. There is no Palestinian people. Second, those who are here are retarded, lazy, stupid people compared to the enlightened Europeans. So there is also superiority. And we don't have, like the rest of the people, collective rights in our homeland. We can have rights, but not as a as a national group. Now, imagine what happened to the people. God forbid you wake up one morning, all your human environment do not exist anymore. There was a war. All the human beings you used to see their faces before the war are not here after the war. They disappeared. And this is the world before all the modern revolution in media. People disappeared. You can't call them. There are no clever phones, smartphones. Well, they disappeared. You don't know anything about them. Israel, directly with the ceasefire, declares all the Arab states as enemy states. So all your neighbors are enemies. If you want to know someone who stayed in Jaffa and his family left during the war, if you want to know if they left to Jordan or Lebanon or Gaza, you are not allowed to do so, because according to the Israeli law, you would be doing a relationship with enemy state. I remember in one of my interviews, an old lady told me, Sami, I want to tell you something, you would think it is very mean. I told her, yes. She told me, had I known that my mother and my relatives have died, it would have been much easier for me. But the fact that they disappeared, and I don't know anything about them, if they're alive, if they are dead, they are starving, they are eating, how are they doing? The uncertainty was much harder for her than if she knew that they were dead. If you know that they are dead, that's it. So people disappeared. You lost all your human environment. And then, like in any other big city in the world, everybody have a social and economic function. So in a sudden, there were no more doctors, no more nurses, no more engineers, no more teachers, no more carpenters. You lost the people, and you lost their social and economic functions. So if you want to continue your life after the ceasefire, all of the people who were building culture with you disappeared. You could not continue life the way you knew it few months ago before the war. Okay, someone wants to start a new life, wants to get married or build a family, ignore the past. He can't. To do a wedding, there were no more wedding courts. By the way, till today, we don't have one big Arab wedding court in Jaffa. Till today. Okay? The woman that makes the dresses for the bride is not here anymore. The carpenter who would build you your furniture is not here anymore. Any human being you use and he's not here anymore. The new occupier came from different cultures. He speaks a different language. He has a different religion. He has different traditions. He's different in everything. His working as a carpenter is different. He makes everything differently. They came from Central and Eastern Europe, they do everything differently. People could not go to the doctor because you did not have a common language with the doctor. You can't explain to him what's your problem. So the new occupier was very different, so people could not continue life the way they knew it before. Now, because the new occupiers dealt with us as enemies, so they wanted to have a better control of us. The 3,900 that stayed in different parts. The city was big. So you have one family in this neighborhood, two families in that neighborhood. So Ben Gurion, the Zionist leader at that time, gave an order to collect all the Arab Palestinians who stayed in Jaffa and to concentrate them only in one neighborhood. So we were also expelled from our property. Okay? Now, they collected all of the people by force, concentrated them in the southern neighborhood in Jaffa. It's called the Ajami neighborhood.
Ajami.
Yeah, Ajami. And for a better control, they surrounded us with a tile fence and put us under the military control. Now, they gave us citizenship and identity cards, but they dealt with us as enemies.
Concentration camp.
The Jewish people who survived the Holocaust that came after the war and saw the Ajami neighborhood taught us a new word. We didn't know it before Zionism. They called our neighborhood a ghetto. In the official Israeli papers, 1950s, our neighborhood is called Ghetto Ajami. We didn't know the word ghetto before Zionism. From their experience in Europe, when they saw military control with tile fences, with soldiers, they called it a ghetto. We were all concentrated in 1 square kilometer. So people, we became enemies in our homeland to the new occupier from their point of view, lost all of the basic rights. People lost their property, lost their family, lost their human environment. Everything changed dramatically, and we lost relationship to our people. The new occupier says there are no Palestinians. Raising the Palestinian flag would put you in prison. Till 1993, raising the Palestinian flag was a crime according to the Israeli law. Till today,
Sorry, until when?
1993.
1993 with the Oslo Agreement.
1993.
People were imprisoned for having Palestinian flag in their houses. Sometimes. So, military control, people lost all of their basic rights, we became a minority in our homeland, and the new occupier says there is no Palestine or Palestinians, and we are now a minority, but not a national minority. Different religious minorities. This is the first catastrophe. The second came straight after it. Now imagine you come today to Tokyo and you have everything in Tokyo without the Japanese people. You have the buildings, you have the furniture, you have the infrastructure, university, books, gardens, you have everything. Now they expelled 750,000 Palestinians who lived in nearly 450 different villages and cities. And in a sudden, the Zionist project had a huge amount of property. Our houses, our gardens, our mosques, our church, everything. But they did not buy it. And Israel is a modern state. And they wanted to control the property and use it. So they made us a brilliant law. They had, and they do it Jewishly and democratically. They sat in their parliament, in the Knesset, and they voted for a new law. It's called the absentee law. What is this absentee law? It says like this: Israel, after the war, will send its people to count all, they called it neglected property. We ran away and we neglected our property. So the law says Israel will send its workers to go out, count all the neglected property. And the law says like this: anyone who is not found inside his property, on the minute they are counting the property, would lose the property to the Israeli state. How? Palestinians are not that magicians. You expelled them. They are in Gaza, Jordan. How can you be in a refugee camp in Lebanon and in the same second you are in your house in Jaffa? It can't work. This is how they confiscated all the refugees' property. What? They did not say those who could not prove property. People had the papers. You could prove property. Okay? They said those who are not here, but you expelled them. So the second catastrophe was an economic catastrophe, economic nakma. The Palestinians who were expelled outside their homeland lost all their property. Not just those who were expelled outside the homeland. Those who were expelled inside the homeland had the same problem. Now, not just in Jaffa. After the ceasefire in 1949, there was nearly 160,000 Palestinians living as citizens in the state of Israel. Nearly 25% of them were, we call them, internal refugees, internal displacement. So, my family, for example, Jaffa is a very small city geographically. We were part of the enemy. They wanted to put us with all the rest in the Ajami neighborhood. Our property is in the neighborhood beside it. It's called Tal al-Rish. Okay? Now, they took us by force, put us in the Ajami, like the rest of the people in Jaffa. And then they went to count our property. And we lost our property. Now, those who stayed also, the vast majority were not from the Ajami neighborhood. So we lost all of our property after the war. So people who stayed were also crushed economically. Those who were living by accident, very, very small number, people were from the Ajami neighborhood in the origin. In order to confiscate their property, they took them from this building, put them in the building beside it. Then they went and counted their property. And then they brought them to sign in Hebrew papers. They could not read Hebrew. But people were so terrified that they were ready to sign on everything or do. They were terrified. Okay? So they also lost their property inside the Ajami neighborhood. So now this economic catastrophe was much harder for those who stayed. Why? Because people, a lot of them were doing good economically before the war. And a sudden, after the war, you lost everything. Jaffa was a rich city. It was the main exporter of oranges to the whole world. Now, all leftist historians now they like to write history of branding. Okay, this is the new fashion in leftist history. Jaffa orange was the most famous brand in modern history for something like a century.
Is that why it's Jaffa cakes?
This is why the Jaffa cakes are orange cakes till today. Because it was the main exporter of oranges to the whole world. Yeah, British still use the Jaffa cake till today. Irish novels, Irish poetry, and British poetry at the end of the 19th century have very nice descriptions of the Jaffa orange. It was considered the most wanted present for Christmas because the season is between October and February. It was something very nice that people would describe it in their...
Yeah, and as a child I remember that in my Christmas stocking, an orange.
Yes. It was something big. So people were doing good economically. After the war, they lost everything. I remember in one of my interviews with someone that came from a very rich family. It was in the northern neighborhoods of Jaffa, Manshir. All of his family left during the war, and they kept him here because he was running all of the businesses. So he was put with all the others in the Ajami neighborhood. When Israel was doing and collecting details about the people, the new state knew that he was running the factory and the businesses in his neighborhood. Okay? So they confiscated all his property, but they took him to work as a worker in his factory because he is the best one to do that. He knows how. He had a heart stroke on the first day. He could not do that. He had a heart stroke. And he could not go north through this neighborhood till Israel totally destroyed the neighborhood. I made interviews with people that did good before the war. Now, like what you are seeing now in Gaza, they steal everything during the war. Also in Jaffa, they stole everything. So part of the people were brought to houses that had no windows, no doors, no furniture. And it was very hard winter in 1949. Some people went to their houses to ask the new immigrant who is living instead of them now to do them a favor, that there are some extra pillows and extra blankets, so if they can do a favor and give them some of the pillows and the blankets from their house. Imagine you pass on daily beside your house. You are living in something which is not yours. Your house exists, but someone else is living. You don't know why. You are here. So the second catastrophe was the economic catastrophe. The third catastrophe was this. I'm going to summarize. It calls coexistence. Part of the Zionist narrative is that we should be very thankful because they allowed us to stay and live with the Jews, and we are living in coexistence. Now, how does this coexistence happen? The new settler project that came to Palestine expelled our people, expelled our families. And they wanted to build a Jewish state. For this, they needed a Jewish majority. From the beginning, I told you demography was playing very important role. So, in order to do what they call demographic balance, they expelled us, and they started bringing a huge amount of Jewish immigration to Palestine after the 1948 war. Just a second, sorry. Julius, to do a demographic balance. So they started bringing a huge amount Jewish immigration from Europe and the Arab world. The state was still young, didn't have time or money to build to all the new Jewish comers. How did they solve their housing problem? They gave them our houses. Now they started giving them the property they stole from us. And then in Jaffa, all the other neighborhoods were not enough. They started bringing people to live with us inside the same neighborhood, inside the Ajami neighborhood. And then the Ajami neighborhood was not enough because they were bringing big numbers of Jews. So they used to put the whole Arab Palestinian family, at that time they were big families, 10 people, 12 people, to put the whole family in one room and give the room beside it to a Jewish Bulgarian family or to a Jewish Romanian family. So they used to live with us, not inside the same building, inside the same apartment. We would be concentrated in one room, and they would put the newcomers, the new colonialists in the rooms beside us. And we would use the same toilets and kitchen. Now the new colonialists, in order to become part of the Zionist project, immediately went into the Israeli army. So at that time you could find your Romanian neighbor getting dressed with his army suit comes to tell you, Sami, look after my room. I have a mission in Gaza. And you want to tell him, sir, who's your enemy in Gaza? What do you mean? My brother is your enemy in Gaza. You are going to kill my brother. But you are afraid to open your mouth. Because if you do so, you will become a refugee like your brother. So you shut up till he goes to kill your brother and come back.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but was it like the poorer or like lesser ones that were put into a genie, or did it not matter? Like, was there a class thing going on among the Jews?
I wish.
No. So.
La, I wish. Not in the Arabs and not in leftist Palestinian historians at the beginning claimed that the elites ran away.
No. I meant like when they were putting Jewish.
I
Okay,
understand exactly.
Yeah.
First of all, regarding the Palestinians, all of the Palestinians were expelled, and they dealt equally in the same racist way with all the Palestinians, rich, middle class, and poor. No, they used more force and violence towards the elites and the middle classes in order in the 1950s to push them out also. Those who stayed. The Jews who came here, okay, the state was still very young. The old elites were not that established. So they put the Zionist project is a European project. The first elites that came were Europeans. They were racist towards the Jews that came from the Arab world. Those who came from Europe were concentrated in the cities and in the built areas, most of them. Those who came from the Arab world were concentrated in concentration camps. The Jews called them ma'abarot. A lot of people who came from Iraq, from Morocco, okay, they were concentrated in undeveloped areas. Till today, the underdeveloped periphery are from Arab Jewish origins. Okay, but in Jaffa, we had people from all over, from mainly Bulgaria, but we had some people from Romania, and we had some people from Morocco, and from Yemen, and from all over. Now, the three catastrophes, three Nakbas, happened between the year 1948 and 1950. It was very fast and very powerful. People did not know how to deal with all this pain, with all this loss. They lost their homeland, we became a minority, we lost all of our basic rights, including our right to move. Someone like my grandfather, before the war, the whole world was open for him. He could take a taxi straight from Jaffa to Beirut. After the war, he could not go from the ghetto to the neighborhood beside it without a military permission. So people lost all of their basic rights. Then they lost their property. And then a lot of them were not able to defend their homes. They had enemies living with them in their homes. Most of the men became under clinical depression. A lot of them could not deal with all this pain. A lot of them, in order to deal with it, became either alcoholic. We had a huge phenomenon of alcoholism within the men population in the 1950s and 60s. Part of them became drug addicts. At that time, the famous drug was opium. And a lot of them started dealing with crime. In a very, very small time, the most important Arab Palestinian city, Jaffa, was transferred into a small, poor criminal neighborhood named the Ajami neighborhood. One of Palestinian brilliant poet named Rashid Hussein wrote a very nice poem on Jaffa. He called it Rashid Hussein. Rashid, R-A-S-H-A, R-A-S-H-E-D.
ED. Yeah.
Hussein. Okay,
Hasin.
I would go H-U.
You.
Hussein.
H-U.
Same.
Oh, Hussein.
S-S-I-N.
Oh, Hussein.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rashid Hussein. The poem
Hussein.
is entitled "Love and the Ghetto." Love and the Ghetto. He describes Jaffa in this hard times of the 1950s, and at the end he says, "The city that used to export its oranges to the whole world, that most of the world drank its oranges, stopped exporting oranges and started exporting refugees." So, in 1950, Jaffa was annexed officially to Tel Aviv. So it does not exist anymore as an independent city. And it is planned and controlled by the municipality of Tel Aviv Jaffa. They continue to disconnect us from our history and identity. We are not allowed to teach our history in our schools.
That's what I was saying.
And they don't acknowledge at all our Palestinian history or our Palestinian identity. They continue ignoring it totally.
So in our textbooks in high school, it said the Palestinians left
Of
their
course.
homes. Is that what they teach? Like, what? How do they account for? Or do they just pretend no one's here? Do they do this at the colonial empty land thing? Like there was only a few people here?
They continue with the classical claim that it was empty.
Yeah.
And those who were here were some
Nomads.
underdeveloped Bedouin tribes, that it's not that awful if they live here or there for them. They would do it anyhow. Okay. And they claim they ran away. Now, in order to justify their crime, they use a photo for a Palestinian leader, Haj Amin al-Husseini, the most important Palestinian leader at that time, was Hitler, making him number 2 in the Nazi regime after Hitler. And they said he chose, all of the bad things were Palestinian choice. Now, for a very, very long time, they decided to totally ignore not just the Palestinian identity of those in Jaffa, all over the state. In 1967, they occupied the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. And the leftist leaders at that time, Golda Meir and others, were saying, there is no Palestinian people. If there is no Palestinian people, there is no Palestinian rights. And they wanted to keep Jewish superiority all the time. Israel is a Jewish state, it's a state for the Jewish people, and they have rights here, historical rights, religious rights. The others don't have it. Now they are generous enough to keep us here if we don't have any national aspirations. If we don't want to live in equality, if we are ready to accept our inferiority and be here as cheap labor, they are generous enough to give us this chance. Smotrich, our very important minister, he is running the treasury, says clearly in his plan in 2016 that those who are non-Jews, okay, we don't have an identity of our own, we are non-Jews. Those who are non-Jews, they have a few options. All of historical Palestine is Eretz Israel. Okay? There is no Palestine or Palestinian people. All of it belongs to the Jewish people. Those who are non-Jews, they have different options. If they give up all their talks and all their aspirations and all their projects to talk about Palestine or Palestinian rights, they can continue living here as workers, and we will help them to develop, because without us they cannot develop. Okay, this is classical colonial way of thinking. The indigenous people cannot develop without the colonialists. So we should be very thankful if they give us this chance. If we choose to fight for justice and equality, he have three options for us. Either he will kill us, or expel us, or put us in prison. This is historically how they were thinking all the time. It's not Smotrich alone. Historically, Zionist leftists did that. Between 1967 and little bit after the year 2000, more than 1 million Palestinian men passed in the Israeli prisons. This means nearly all the men population. Now, not all of them for long periods, but all of them were in prison for a few weeks, for a few months, for a few years. So, I want to finish by telling you what happens after the first Intifada Oslo agreement and the establishment of our party, and then we open the whole thing for discussion. For a long time, the Zionists believed their lies and lived in a denial situation. That the Palestinians do not exist. Those who are here are very lucky that we are giving them job opportunities. They should be very thankful for Zionists that it's a developed European state and society, so they can give us higher wages and it's better for us. Now, the racism prevents them from comparing our situation to their situation. When you tell them, what the fuck are you talking about? It's a racist society, you can see racism all over. But in their minds, they don't compare you to their situation. You cannot be equal to them. By definition, this is too much to ask. What are you talking about? How dare you compare yourself to the Jewish people? This is the chosen people. What? You should compare yourself to the situation in Syria. Compared to Syria, you are doing better. You should be thankful. Now, they never compare us, for example, for minority situation in Sweden or in Switzerland or in any normal democracy. Okay? They all the time when they do the comparison, they don't do it with themselves. I am living in Jeffa. Compare me to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is close to me, not Syria. So they compare you to Syria and they tell you, what are you complaining about? You should be thankful. You are doing much better than Syria. But why do you compare me to Syria? I'm a citizen of Israel. Why do you compare me at all to Syria? I am here. So they wanted to keep the superiority, and they had a few different arguments how to justify this racist situation. Now, the racist situation, you don't need someone giving you a lecture or something. You just drive your car, guys. Drive your car in Israel. Nobody needs to tell you anything. You would see the gaps between Arabs and Jews wherever you go. Forget the 1967 occupied parts. Okay? Inside the state, we are, according to the Israeli law, we are citizens. Okay? Drive your car wherever you like to. You would see now. How would you see the differences? Why is it so easy? The society is built on racial separation. 90% of the population lives Arabs alone and Jews alone. And it looks totally normal for everyone. Okay? Yani now we are here in Jaffa. Jaffa is a central area. We are 20,000 Palestinians. The next city beside us is called Bat Yam. Okay? Bat Yam is 100% Jewish. To the east from it, there is Colonial. Colonial is 100% Jewish. To the east from it, there is Rishon LeZion. Rishon LeZion is 100% Jewish. Same as Ramat Gan, same as Givat, same as Tel Aviv. Now, all the problem that a lot of scholars complain about the youth immigrating to the city. Anywhere in the world. Well, people are immigrating to Tokyo, they go to Montreal, okay, whatever. In Israel, it doesn't happen. Arabs, we come to study in Tel Aviv University because we don't have our own university. Then we go back to our poor cities and villages. We don't stay here. So they keep racial separation. 10% lives in what is called mixed cities. I will later on get back to the mixed cities. Jaffa is the most mixed city. I will tell you where do you see separation and where do you see mixture. So first of all, the state and society are built on racial separation. Now, all the Jewish areas, the way it is planned, the way they think about it, the way they talk about it, deserve all the important rights, including basic things that in Israel, okay, before Israel, there is train in this part of the world. Train, okay? It started with the Ottomans at the end of the 19th century. Israel developed lately, in the last 2 decades, the train. It used to stop in X stations, now it's 3X stations. All of the train stations are only in the Jewish areas. Now we are spread all over. There are Arab Palestinians in the south, there are Arab Palestinians in the center, there are Arab Palestinians in the north, okay? And there are tens of cities and villages for the Arabs, nearly 1,000 for the Jews. The train does not stop. There is not one train station in any Arab city or village. There are weird things, and sometimes there is a big Arab city, like the biggest is Rahat, and beside it there's a very, very small Jewish thing called Lehavim. The train stops in Lehavim. It doesn't stop in Rahat. It looks normal to everyone. Nobody talks about it.
Is it like the tram?
The train.
Train, I know, but that, okay.
We don't have a tram.
Oh, okay.
The metro is very new in Israel. It was opened a year ago.
Okay.
Okay, the train that you see here is a tram in Jaffa, but most of its way is...
Okay.
Now, it passes in the mixed cities,
Mm-hmm.
but because there are Jews there.
Mm-hmm.
But in all the Arab areas, okay, Israel built something like 25, 30 big hospitals. Not even one was built in an Arab city. Government. Since 1948, there has been hundreds of ministers. Okay? There was only one Arab minister for a year or 2 years since the establishment of the Israeli state till today. All these important ministries that plan our present and our future, they have CEOs. Not even one was Arab. Not even one. Anything you check, anything you do a comparison, you see the gaps. This book is exactly on this issue. It's a new book by Professor Nadim Rouhana on the Jewish privileges. Jewish privileges. This is a new book, very important one. edited by Professor Nadim Rouhana, Rouhana. It's called Israel and its Palestinian Citizens. Ethnic privileges in the Jewish state. Now you have the privileges all over. We are 20% of the population. We live only on 3% of the land. And all the time they are confiscating out of this 3%. Our number in 1948 was 160,000 people. Now we are 1,700,000. They did not build one modern city for us. We are developing without any normal modern city center.
What about Ramallah?
I'm talking about inside the green lands, not in 1967.
Got it.
Yeah. The area that was occupied in 1967 has a different. I'm talking about those who are considered Palestinian citizens. Okay? Those in Ramallah are not Palestinian citizens, are not Israeli citizens. Type. So they don't acknowledge our identity. We are not allowed to learn our history. And from their point of view, we should be very thankful for the Zionist project in our homeland. 1993, after the big first Palestinian Intifada, Israel came to an agreement with PLO to do a two-state solution. Now, when they wanted to do the two-state solution, the Palestinian National Movement inside the state of Israel said, guys, what are you doing? This might make our situation worse, not better. Because if the small state yet to be will be Palestine for the Palestinians, what is the nature of the second state? And if it wants to continue the way it is built on racist elements, a Jewish state, what will happen to us? We are Palestinians, we are not Jewish. If Israel wants to continue as a Jewish state or the state of the Jewish people, the two-state solution puts us in a trap. We are not Jewish. So we claim two very important things. First of all, the Israeli state can never be considered a democracy because by definition it prefers part of the population on the other part of the population. Jews deserve more according to the law. They have the law to return, we don't have it. They have a lot of laws that gives them the most important resource, land, we don't. Okay? And it looks normal for them. This time, the Jews are not victims of racism. They are the racist part. They are enjoying it. So as long as Israel wants to see itself as a Jewish state or the state of the Jewish people, it will continue giving privileges to Jews on us, the indigenous population. So we said this must change. We must do something. So we said we are ready to go for a historical compromise. We want to see an end for this conflict. But any historical compromise should at least guarantee us our equality. And in order to live in equality, Israel, the Zionist project, must deconstruct its racist elements and start dealing with all the people equally, according to their citizenship. If you are a citizen, you are equal. If your grandfather or grandfather prayed like a Jew or like a Muslim or did not pray, this should have nothing to do with your rights. Okay? We are struggling our main political agenda is that we want to make Israel a normal democracy. Okay, that's all. We call it the state of all its citizens. This is our main project. Now, there is nothing innovative or nothing big or nothing creative in this solution. We are just struggling to make Israel a normal democracy like all other democracies in the world. You would deal equally with all your citizens. To have a democratic, Israel don't have a constitution. To have a democratic constitution that guarantees the rights of both sides, Palestinians or Israelis, who deal equally with everyone. So our main political agenda is based on the values of justice and equality for all. Because of this agenda, we are considered in the Israeli political system the most extreme political party.
Yeah.
Well, seriously,
Yeah.
we are considered very extreme. And every elections, they try to ban us from running into the elections.
Such a democracy.
Yeah.
Yes.
In
Same as in the United States.
if you are struggling for equality, it's too much. So how do they try to ban us? In Israel, the elections committee is a political committee. It's built out from the different political parties. So in the Knesset, they say that Balad is too extreme and should not allow. So we lose there. And then we go to the high courts. And in the high courts, there is discussion. I remember in one of the discussions, I think in 2003, we went to the Israeli Supreme Court, and the state attorney was talking about us. So the head of the court, at that time I think it was Aharon Barak, tells her, lady, why do you want to ban the Balad party from running into the elections? So she tells him, Your Highness, this party is struggling for full equality.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that's democracy.
Now, he was shocked. He tells the lady, you are representing the state here. You should have better excuses. So she started telling that we support terror, but we should be banned because we in her mind that we are struggling for full equality. So we have a party that is trying to struggle for full equality. For this, we are considered extreme.
Is that what Balad means? Equality?
Yeah. To summarize and open the whole thing for discussion, the Palestinian situation for the citizens who live inside Israel is a very complicated situation. Different than other settler colonial projects, Zionism did not kill all the Palestinians. They expelled us. But because it still continues and have an appetite to add more and occupy more, so they are adding Palestinians. In 1967, they added more. On historical Palestine, now we became a majority in our homeland. This is why the war in Gaza is a genocidal war. From their point of view, they want to have the land, but on the land, there are too many Palestinians. So they killed 50,000. 10,000 are missing. 100,000 more are injured. And they expect when the people of Gaza will have the chance, few 100,000 will go out. And they want to continue building settlements in Gaza. For those who look from the outside world, it looks weird, it looks something that cannot happen, it looks strange. But guys, it was like this from the beginning. And it succeeded. The majority of my people till today are refugees all over the world, since 1948 till today. They continued developing and adding land few times. Now they occupy the rest of the Golan Heights. It looks normal for them. So without deconstructing the racial elements of this settler colonial project, it will continue. Because from their point of view, it looks totally legitimate. In order to stop that, we are proposing a historical compromise. A two-state solution which is based on the values of justice and equality for all. But because of their racism in their political mentality, asking for this is too much. How dare you? How dare you say that you want to be equal? This is too much. And racism is controlling the minds of everyone. And guys, when there's a genocidal war happening a few kilometers far from here, there wasn't one political statement of any political Zionist leader against the war. Not even one. From the left or from the right. There's a consensus on a genocide. We are trying to do demonstrations against the war in our cities and villages. Now, this is 460 days of war. Today we received again from the Israeli police that we are not allowed to do a demonstration. And it looks totally normal for everyone. So, one of our biggest challenges is that we are struggling against a very ugly racist project, but its image all around the world is that it's a very white European democratic project. The gaps between the image and reality is unbelievable. And this image is what's helping Israel to continue, which is genocide since the beginning of the war. You should see, you know the program 60 Minutes?
Yep.
It's very famous.
CBS.
You should see the interview that was done for two Mossad agents talking about their terror in the Pagers issue. How did they do that? This was the biggest terrorist attack since 9/11. You should see how thrilled and interested and happy was the interviewer of 60 Minutes, as if she is an agent of the Israeli Mossad, smiling all the time, and so happy from the Israeli terror. And not even one critical question for 16 minutes. Not even one critical question. Not even one saying that this is terror. What do you mean you bombed people all over Lebanon? Not talking about all the children and women that were killed. Or she was so happy from the Israeli Mossad terror. And they were saying clearly, and one of them said that they can do this all over the world. They are working in the whole world is their stage. Well, this is a terror. This is exactly terrorism. And she was so happy and asking them very nice questions, nothing critical. So you would see that racism towards us is not just by the Zionists. It's also by the Americans and some other European societies. What happened with the Pagers, the man of the Mossad says in numbers, it's much harder than what happened on the 7th of October. And he explains, he said, We chose not to kill them. We chose to make thousands of people losing their eyes, their hands, and their legs, and part of their bodies, and to keep alive as living examples of what Israel can do. And she doesn't ask him anything about that. She likes what he says. It's unbelievable. Okay, sorry.